It's a bit harder to pinpoint which x86 based handheld PC to buy these days. The prices are starting to increase on these devices, and also stock has been harder to find, like the Steam Deck for example. For years now, the Steam Deck has been the default choice if you were to recommend someone a PC handheld. But now it's been largely out of stock, and they have also discontinued the original LCD model, which was the cheapest. Every model of the Steam Deck is still a great device, but if we set that aside, what do you go for now? We're starting to get some more SteamOS based devices like the Legion Go S, and the Legion Go 2 is also getting a SteamOS version soon. But these are more expensive than the Steam Deck and even the Xbox ROG Ally. I think if you are on a budget and absolutely need something right now and want it to be new or open box, then you go for the ROG Xbox Ally, the non-X version. But what I stuck with and actually recommend is the original ROG Ally Z1 Extreme model on the used market. I picked up this one for around $400 Canadian on Marketplace and then did some mods to it. But maybe I went a little overboard, to be honest. Let's go over some of the mods that I ended up doing, and I'll mention maybe what I wouldn't bother doing yourself. First up is the elephant in the room. This is the original white Z1 Extreme model that came out, but I took it apart and ended up painting it. I only painted the front plate and the buttons. I'll go over the back plate later. That was an insane undertaking and I do not recommend it. I mainly did it as a challenge or to learn something new and just see how it would turn out, to be honest. I painted this months ago and it's held up better than I thought. I'd say the face buttons themselves do show some wear, but I expected that to happen. I painted the face buttons and the menu buttons. Funny enough, I kept this screen installed. This made it tough to get the paint into the very top of the bezel, but it saved me some time. In retrospect, I would remove the screen because I already went this far with it. I lightly sanded with a gray 3M block, cleaned the surface, and then I applied the adhesion promoter. Then applied light coats about every 24 hours in a controlled environment. I think I ended up with 5 or 6 coats. Then I applied a matte clear coat on everything as a protective coat. When I assembled everything, I had to sand down the holes where the face buttons are. With paint on the buttons and the shell, it became kind of too rough, and some of the buttons were getting stuck. But I did end up fixing it by sanding the sides of the buttons as well. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I've had this idea for so long, and yes, I know it's way smarter to just get your hands on a black Ally X and call it a day, but this was more of a fun experiment. Another experiment was the back plate. This is the handheld DIY clear backplate. I removed the installed kickstand for a little extra space though. It certainly doesn't look like it now because I ended up dyeing it with black dye. I did this with Rit Dye More, with a pot on the top of my stove. I couldn't find completely clear instructions to do this, but I followed a few videos through their process at least. I ended up using all the dye in the bottle by the end of it, because it wasn't getting as dark as I wanted it to at the time. I'm kind of mixed on the result, to be honest. It looks like it has a purple kind of hue to it, and less of a black smoky look that I was going for. After the dyeing process, I cleaned it and then added a matte clear coat for some added protection. I also trimmed down the inside a bit, the best I could to incorporate the next mod, the 74 watt hour battery mod. I did this mod as carefully as I could. I can link a guide that I trust down below, but after trimming out enough plastic on the inside of the back plate, I then wrapped the aftermarket battery with aluminum tin tape. After that, I added a really thin piece of aluminum that I trimmed to be slightly smaller than the overall size of the battery as a heatsink for the battery. This mod is a game changer for sure. It feels like I've doubled the battery life, even though we didn't actually, because the original is a 40 watt hour battery. But at the same time, I'm kind of torn. This mod adds a ton of weight to the device, and I'm generally always next to an outlet when I'm using it. This really helps with battery anxiety though. I'll go into why I may remove this battery eventually later on. Next would be the sticks. If you ever felt the light tension on the stock Ally sticks, you'd know how it feels unnatural. It's not bad, but it's just not great either. I took the stock sticks apart as carefully as I could, but this is probably the hardest mod to do. After removing the shield of the bottom of the stick, the spring pops out. I stretched the spring just a little bit to make it stiffer in use. The problem with this mod is that it's hard to get them exactly the same in stiffness, and also removing the shield without breaking the clips on the side. I basically broke all of them, but they stay in place after screwing them back in, which is also very difficult. High risk, high reward for this mod. This is where the sponsor of this video comes in. My first ever sponsor, PCBWay. With the help of a friend, I managed to print everything I needed for this Ally, but the quality of the prints weren't the greatest with the printer that I have. This is where PCBWay came in. Using their 3D printed services, I needed to reprint one of the sticks because one of them isn't as smooth as the other, and the D-pad is a little rough around the edges. They make it so easy to add your files with your choice of material, and then when you go to submit your order, they will go in and make sure it all looks good, then process your order. And most importantly, they manufacture custom PCBs and offer CNC machining services. Thank you again to PCBWay for sponsoring this video. After getting these parts printed and installed, this lets me use the swappable Xbox Elite sticks and D-pad. I can change the length of the stick or just if they wear out at any time because they're just magnetic. The D-pad I can also swap out with the dish style D-pad at any time. I just use the regular D-pad though. The sticks are an improvement with the metal rings that help with friction, and I like the grip better. The D-pad is an improvement, but not by much. I think you can skip this if you don't really feel the need. But one thing I had to do is the D-pad tape mod. You can use Kapton tape or electrical tape to block off parts of the contacts to lower the misinputs when using the D-pad. I do notice the improvement. This isn't the first Ally I've done this to actually. The last mod is a common one, a 2TB full-size SSD. I bought this little tab that gives me something to keep the SSD pushed down on the end, along with the more common adapter that goes with it. I also added this heatsink to the SSD to keep it a little cooler. I never ended up needing any of this in the end. I was pretty comfortable with the stock 512 SSD that comes with the Ally. I'm pretty sure the SD card slot works on this unit, not that I intend to rely on it for obvious reasons. I'm actually going to take this SSD out and put it in my new laptop and install the stock one back in. This SSD was around $200 Canadian when I bought it. Now it's worth more than I even paid for the Ally itself, which is insane. I always ran it with Windows, but have been tempted with Bazite or SteamOS. Thing is, once you get Windows working how you want, I don't find it that bad. I've been messing with the Xbox full screen experience, but probably not in the way you'd think. When I boot into the Xbox full screen experience, I basically close out Xbox immediately. And then I just use big picture mode with Steam or Armory Crate, surprisingly enough. This serves as my main launcher, so to speak. I was wondering if there's a way we could choose which app actually boots when entering into the Xbox full screen experience. So I looked it up, and of course you can. There seems to be two methods. You can either manually go in and run a script to replace the Xbox app that launches, or you can install this app that somebody made called AnyFSE to do most of the work for you. Seems like AnyFSE has a bit more to it, but both seem like great options. I'll link both methods down below. The base Z1E Ally with no mods is still the best bang for buck PC handheld. But if you have enough patience and capability, you can mod it to rival some of the newer ones today. The 74 watt-hour battery is great if you take the time to do it right, just to be on the safer side. The sticks and D-pad are awesome too, but I don't recommend painting the device. I like how it looks and I had tons of fun doing it, but it's a big job that's hard to get right. I normally sell a lot of my devices to fund something new, but I'll be hanging on to this one just because of how much work I put into it. Going forward, I'm going to be putting the stock SSD back in because I end up streaming some of my bigger or more demanding games and I need the storage elsewhere. The battery I'm torn on if I'm keeping it installed. It's amazing, but I utilize streaming so much on super low wattage with the Ally, and I also leave this device at home most of the time. So a smaller, lighter battery might be better for me at this time. Tell me what you think of the mods I've tried and what you would want to mod with your Ally if you have one. And please look to the used market before spending a ton of money on a newer x86 handheld. Really want to thank PCBWay for being my first sponsor on this channel, and check them out in the link below. It's kind of rough and it's my first video on the channel, but if you want to hear some of my thoughts on the newest ROG Xbox Ally X, you can check out my video on that.